Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Triple Threat Show on WXJM 88.7 FM, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and WXJM.org. My name is Jeremy Lapidus, your host of the Triple Threat Show, joined today by my friend and co-host,
Shane.
Shane is here. I really was expecting a last name, quite honestly, but that's all right.
Sorry, I'm a bit rusty. It's been a while.
Shane is here. We have a great show for you tonight. Today, I guess. A lot's going on. First of all, we have another football game today, another away game. This time at Troy for JMU. Troy was picked to win the Sun Belt West Division, just like JMU was picked to win the Sun Belt East in the preseason poll. So this should be a good game. Obviously, they're coming off that incredible win versus Virginia last Saturday, 36-35, in a game that was
nuts.
Yeah, it was a crazy
Had
game.
a bit of everything.
And I want to talk a little bit about that game too, once we get there. But the NFL is Week 2's going on. That's happening tomorrow, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And then Shane is here for the first time this year, so we have to break down the NHL offseason. So there is a lot to talk about this show. And Shane, where do you want to start today?
Let's start off with the big story, the JMU-UVA game.
Yeah, so last Saturday, JMU went into UVA for the first time in in more than 40 years. The last time they played was 1983. So it's been 40 years. So first time in 40 years, they play UVA, and JMU came in as like a 6-point favorite. So when you look at the result, it's a little disappointing. I'm not going to say that because it was an incredible win.
Yeah.
And like, we had no idea that UVA would just find a quarterback. So, for those who don't know, JMU went down to UVA last week, beat them 36-35. But UVA, their quarterback was hurt. He wasn't playing. They had to turn to a freshman. First time he had ever played a game, he came in and he balled out. Like, he won the starting job that day. So congratulations to him. Snaps for him. But, I mean, he played an incredible game. I am a little worried about JMU's defense because it wasn't like they were working the ball down the field in small chunks. It was an 80-yard touchdown, and then a 65-yard touchdown, and then a 50-yard touchdown, and then a 70-yard touchdown. It was all these super long plays up and down the field.
One of the first plays of the game from UVA, it went all the way except for like a holding call, which brought it all the way back. So they're just giving up big plays.
I think that was the first play of the game.
Yeah.
Actually, no,
I think it was UVA's first play. It went for like 70 yards or something, but it got called back for holding.
Yeah. So, stuff to work on for the defense, but Jordan McLeod led an incredible comeback after the rain delayed the game for like an hour.
I call it divine intervention.
I do think that UVA would have won that game if the rain didn't stop the game, just the way that it was going. I mean, JMU had just gotten a little bit of momentum, but UVA, I believe, had gone down the field and scored a play after a fumble was called not a fumble. So there was a lot of stuff working against JMU, and then the rain stopped it and reset the game. And just like in the beginning of the game, JMU came out ready and UVA did not. Another thing I want to shout out in that game actually is the punt team. For the second week in a row, they blocked a punt. And this one, they recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. So, I mean,
that was like their second touchdown, right?
Yeah, put them up 14-3. And I mean, can they do it a third week in a row, Shane? You block another punt?
Why not?
Why not?
Can't they? I think also at the end of the game, after the rain delay, there was noticeably more JMU fans than UVA fans. So I think that was also kind of poetic how the game turned, where the rain just made everything into JMU's favor.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, Charlottesville's only an hour away, but I mean, people stormed the field. It was like not like a huge storming, but they ran onto the field. Honestly, when I saw the image for the first time, I thought it was just the teams.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell that people were storming, but like, pretty cool that you can storm an opposing team's field.
Yeah, and I heard like the bars were pretty nuts too when JMU won. It was just kind of cool how just the Duke's fan base and students like all rallied for this game. They all went to UVA and showed up and showed their support, and that's just really cool to see the energy that this game brought to the campus.
Yeah. There were a couple points throughout this game that I thought, especially before the rain delay, I thought they might make a change at quarterback. Obviously, that wouldn't have been the right move. Maybe. I don't know what your opinions are here. But there was a pseudo quarterback controversy week 1. I don't know what you think about this. Has Jordan McLeod taken QB1 for the season at this point?
I would say after that game, you've gotta give him the start since he won your last game. Like especially with who started the first game?
Alonzo Barnett.
Yeah, it's just like, especially with freshmen, I feel like you gotta let them sit, learn the system, like get some experience first before you just throw them to the wolves. And I think that McLeod, you said?
Yep.
Like he just looked more ready and he got his team back in it. So I think he has the job for now until proven otherwise.
Yeah. And then the other position, the other guy that really stood out to me in that game, Tyson Lawton, running back. He transferred here out of a Power 5 school, came to JMU, and, with the loss of Percy Ajay-Obase this last offseason, we weren't sure who would take the reins in the backfield. Game 1, it was Kalani Black, and he almost had a career day rushing. He was 20 yards away from a career day. But this second game, Lawton came in, and he just played incredible. He was almost the entire offense down the stretch. And it sucks because the Dukes usually have solid wide receivers. But this year they're struggling to find a true receiver 1.
It's also kind of hard when your quarterback situation is also very uncertain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you really can't develop that chemistry.
I mean, Ronnie Brown has come out and been pretty solid these first 2 games, but there hasn't really been that dominant wide receiver 1 like we've seen Antoine Wells and Chris Thornton be in recent memory. But no, the running backs, that running back room is really, really deep.
Yeah.
And it's good because JMU has always been a run-first offense, at least recently. So it opens up the playbook. They came out in that first drive and they had a trick play touchdown with the wide receiver throwing a touchdown.
No, my first thought was man, our quarterback situation's that bad when they're making the wide receivers throw.
But no, all around a good game. A little bit to work on the defense, but solid.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had any other thoughts on this UVA game.
I just feel like as a coach, you're probably very frustrated watching that game, but for a fan, it's a super entertaining game to watch. Just the back and forth, JMU with the early lead, then UVA storms back, and then there was a literal storm that rallied JMU at the very end. The script was insane that day.
Yeah, no, it was. And then this week, JMU football goes into Troy in Alabama. Who you got in this game?
Who do you think I'm going to have in this game?
I don't know.
Don't never tell me the odds. I'm always gonna pick JMU. We could be going against Bama, and I'm picking JMU.
Dude, Bama sucks this year.
Really?
No.
I haven't been following college football that closely. I've been too busy with all the other stuff I'm doing.
No, this will be a good game to gauge exactly where JMU is, because Virginia wasn't. I mean, it's a Power 5 team, but it's not a great Power 5 team.
Yeah.
Um,
You don't see UVA and you think, oh, good football.
right. At least this season.
Yeah.
But Troy, I think, is going to be a good benchmark for how good this team really is, because they are a pretty solid team. You know, they're not gonna win a national championship, but they're, I think, a pretty solid benchmark for where the Dukes are. These next 2 weeks, actually, because they're playing them and then South Alabama, which are the top two projected teams in the Sun Belt West. So we'll have to see, but I think they can win. I think they can win these games.
Definitely. Well, they won I know, very different team than it was last year, but the standards are set pretty high, especially how good we had it in our first season in the Sun Belt. It's so dumb that we couldn't make playoffs.
Yeah, it's a dumb rule.
Yeah.
The only thing it does, I mean, it's supposed to give like teams that suck an out, but like,
What if they don't suck?
exactly. What if?
Yeah. It's like Vegas when they didn't have to give up players to the expansion draft for Seattle, but Vegas was one of the best teams in the league right off the bat, and no one saw that coming. So, like, maybe the rules needed to be tweaked a bit there.
Maybe. Probably not, though. No, they're not going to do anything, but they should. They should change it. But moving on to the other big JMU news this week, at least. The men's soccer team is incredible. 9th ranked in the nation. They just they're coming off a tie versus UVA. But they're 4-0-2, ranked 9 in the nation. They have a huge game tonight, actually. Home versus number 2 Marshall. That's at Centera Park. That's going to be an incredible game. It's not often you get a top 10 matchup in Harrisonburg. It really isn't.
Yeah.
And that's not only like a JMU thing. It's just because which top 10 teams are coming here?
Exactly.
You know? So it's super exciting. We've got 9 versus 2. So I'm super pumped for that game.
Are you going to go to it, or?
Probably. Maybe. It's at 7?
Yeah.
What am I doing tonight? Maybe.
I've got something going on at 7, so I can't make it.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll try.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm super excited about this game. And it's free. It's free to go to. So anyway. No, but the soccer team's really good. Volleyball team also, they've come off a couple huge wins. They beat Penn State and they beat
Our volleyball team's ridiculously good.
yeah, no,
Like, they won the championship last year, first season in the Sun Belt.
Mhm.
So it's just like that's kind of where the bar's at, and they like renovated all of Convo to give them a better place to play. So
Yeah, no, we're so spoiled.
yeah, we have so many good sports teams.
That's the thing. Like, last season, our worst team in every single sport was 500.
Yeah.
That was our worst team. We're so spoiled. It's incredible here.
Yeah.
For sports.
So I actually tried to for one of my classes, I have to volunteer for like a JMU sports team.
Mhm.
And I tried to sign up for a volleyball game because I was like, sweet, I love volleyball. It'll be fun to help out. And then they just never emailed me about what I was supposed to be doing. Because I volunteered for a football game one time, and the guy was like, all right, meet here at this time, and I'll give you your credentials and blah, blah, blah. And I just didn't get any of that for the volleyball game, so I was kind of disappointed because I really wanted to see that the Sun Belt Championship team in action.
Yeah. I mean, plenty of opportunities, but just want to give some shout outs here to the Dukes. They're playing great sports right now.
Yeah.
So, go check them out if you can. Moving on. Real quick. Or not real quick. We'll do... You want to do hockey or NFL first, Shane?
We'll save hockey for last. Let's do NFL.
All right. So, week 1 of the NFL season is in the books. And it was a week of football.
Yeah, and I'm already depressed.
I've seen now that Monday Night Football game, the Jets-Bills game, was the most insane football game I have ever witnessed.
That script was nuts.
You had fourth play of the game on the Jets, Aaron Rodgers out for the season, which I want to talk about him in a second once we get past this game and the whole Jet situation.
Just on a side note, did you see some of the crazy sports bets about Aaron Rodgers over half a yard special, and he couldn't even reach that? So imagine you losing money because Aaron Rodgers couldn't make half a yard. Because that was some of the sports books oh, you'll get free money this way, and nope. That's the beauty of sports sometimes, just how random and unpredictable some of the stuff can be.
Yeah, and I mean, random and unpredictable was this game.
Yeah.
Josh Allen threw 3 interceptions to Whitehead, 3 interceptions to one guy. Now, he has more interceptions than every other NFL team.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm. So, congratulations. He has more interceptions than he had all of last season.
What a bad game for Allen.
Yeah. He has those every once in a while.
Yeah. No one's perfect.
No, but when he's bad, he's
really
bad. And then Zach Wilson out here wins a football game. He could not throw the football, though. Now, the only touchdown he had was on probably the best catch of week 1 to Garrett Wilson on a fade route where it was probably the worst thrown fade ball I've ever seen. Now, on a fade ball, it's supposed to be a jump ball, right? You're supposed to throw it up. What Zach Wilson does is he lasers that into the coverage, and Garrett Wilson has to be stop the ball and tip it back to him.
Yeah.
And also stay in bounds because he's running towards the sideline at this point.
And then has the dexterity to catch the tipped ball midair with his other hand.
It was insane.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my question. They said Zach Wilson is their starter, Shane.
Yeah.
What do the Jets do at quarterback? Do they go get a guy? Do they ride this season out with Zach Wilson?
Who's available?
Who's available? You have a group of young guys that couldn't make rosters and old veterans. Guys like Carson Wentz, Josh McCown, Andy Dalton.
Carson Wentz is still out there?
Carson Wentz is still out there.
Huh. I feel like he's had his chance to make a comeback, and I feel like he's the best name available. Or, I just feel like he had one good season, got hurt, and just was never the same again. Or he had maybe 2 good seasons. But it's just, I feel like Zach Wilson's kind of the safest choice because he knows the system, he has chemistry with the players, and it'd be better than just bringing in a new guy. But if I am the Jets, though, I would maybe sign Wentz, as he couldn't hurt to have him as a backup, and I don't know what really better options there are at backup.
No. There are, the issue is you want to get a guy that's not going to split the locker room.
Yeah.
Right? You could go trade for a guy like Jacoby Brissett. I don't know if they really want to trade for another quarterback.
Where is he playing now?
He's at Washington.
Oh, okay.
He's backing up Sam Howell right now. But there's just so many things you could do.
I feel like Wilson's your guy though. Like why he was your top 3 pick,
Yep.
and he's been there for 3, 4, however many years now.
Mm-hmm.
So like why, like it's his time again. Like let's see what he can do this year.
It's just he's so bad.
Yeah.
Like their defense is insane. At least I don't want to overreact too much to just one game, but their defense is. I'm going to overreact right now. Their defense is insane. It's one of the best defensive performances I've ever seen in that game, quite honestly. And then you combine that with the fact that this game ended on a punt return walk-off touchdown by an undrafted wide receiver.
I've got a funny story about that punt return. So I was working the closing shift on Monday at UREC.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone in the gym is watching the game at this point.
Right.
And the operations supervisor, she's a Bills fan.
Mm-hmm.
So she's kind of watching the game. She's panicking, freaking out. She's crouched on the floor with her hands on her head. And then she's like, oh, I actually have to do my job. And she was like, all right, I'm going to leave. So right as overtime was starting, she was like, all right, I'm going to do the closing announcements and then I'll come back. And then as soon as she walks away, the punt happens.
Oh, no.
And then we proceed to see the Jets take it all the way for a touchdown. And I am losing it. I am laughing so hard because McKenna missed that play as a Bills fan. And
honestly,
I was just
probably
I
a good
wanted
play
to see the look on her face, just to see her soul leave her body when the Bills screwed that up. No, but when I told her, the look on her face was priceless. She was like, yeah, they just punt returns with that touchdown. She was just like... the look of defeat that I'm very familiar with.
That game had me the most speechless on multiple plays I've ever been, probably in 5 years. That Garrett Wilson touchdown had me what?
Yeah.
And then the punt return was no shot he just did that.
And I was just there's no way they're going to let him score. There's no way. There's no way. And then he scores. I'm like, I can't believe they just let him do that.
No, that was the most bonkers game I've ever seen in the NFL. I've seen a lot of NFL football. There's not a single chance in the world that anyone could have predicted how any of that game went.
That's the beauty of football. It's just you never know, what's gonna happen.
Right. But this week has started with some controversy. Shane.
Yeah.
We had a Thursday night football game between the Vikings and the Eagles. In that game, the Eagles won by 6 points. But there was a play about midway through the third quarter, or second quarter, I guess, where Justin Jefferson reaches out for the end zone and fumbles the ball out of bounds. And this triggers the touchback rule, which this rule doesn't get triggered all that often, but when it does, it always leads to uproar like this, where everyone that you see is just, oh my goodness, this is the worst rule in football. Now, you're a Vikings fan, Shane, and obviously that touchdown would have, at a minimum, led this game to a tie if everything else stayed the same. But, thoughts about this rule?
I am at the state as a Vikings fan where it's just I always expect the worst. And when I saw that play, I was just like, of course. Why can't say that? Because I was going to be like, why can't things just go our way? But everything last season kind of balanced out in the end. But it was just so dumb. Why isn't it just at the spot of the fumble? Why is it so specifically in the end zone that it's a touchback?
But what makes that rule even stupider is if it goes out of bounds anywhere else on the field, if it's not a clear recovery, it's the offense's ball.
Yeah.
So, if you fumble at the 1 yard line and it goes out of bounds, it's your ball. But if that ball bounces one more yard into the end zone and goes out of bounds, it's the other team's ball. Which
doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. That's another thing there. And it just is dumb.
Why haven't they changed it yet?
Because they can never get. I don't know why they haven't changed it. Honestly, they've proposed rule changes for it before, or talked about it. Like I think the last time this happened, at least in like a high visibility situation like that one, was like 4 or 5 years ago. So people forget about it because it just doesn't happen that often. You don't fumble out of the back of the end zone all that often.
I feel like it's not going to change unless it's going to happen at a critical moment in a playoff game. And I think that would cause enough uproar where they would change the rule. But for a regular season game, and it doesn't happen often enough, they just don't care.
But it's hard to... This rule has a label as the dumbest rule in football. And, I mean...
Probably the dumbest rule in sports.
I don't... yeah, probably, honestly. Yeah, but it's got the label as the dumbest rule in football. And, like... You have to do a lot to get that label.
Yeah.
And that's, like, the consensus label. That's not just, like, a small minority, a vocal minority of people calling it that. That's that's what is referred to when they talk about it most of the time. I mean, it's got to change.
And the dumber part about it is it hasn't been changed yet. Like, there have been dumber rules in sports, but at least they had the wherewithal to change it. Like, I know the dumbest hockey rule back in the day was you weren't allowed to have any part of your body in the crease. And the Stanley Cup winning goal that year, Brett Hull's foot was clearly in the crease, but they just let it happen. Even though they've called back far, like, less egregious goals.
There would have been a riot if they called back that. There was going to be a riot either way.
Yeah. So it's just... So now it's more like if the puck's in the crease, you're allowed to be in the crease. So at least that makes more sense. But they changed it. Like, if it's a bad rule, you change it. And it's even dumber that the NFL hasn't changed this ridiculous rule.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to change a rule, and I think it'd be cool if they changed it, but if they did change, what would you change it to? Like, what's the solution here? Ball gets fumbled out of the end zone, what happens?
I would just say probably when the player loses possession of the ball, like, that's where the play starts.
But would you do that for all fumbles? Say it was at the 50-yard line, I fumble it, ball rolls 20 yards downfield, gets hit out of bounds. Do I get the ball or defense recovers it 20 yards down the field? Does the defense get the ball where I fumbled it, or do they get it where they picked it up?
They get it where they picked it up.
Okay. What if it goes out of bounds? Do I get it where I fumbled it, or do I get it where it went out of bounds?
You get it where you fumbled it.
Because that would involve changing more than just that rule.
I'm not too familiar with, like, every logistic of the fumbling rules.
So generally, you have to make a clear recovery inbounds for the other team to get the ball.
Yeah.
That's the rule. The other rule is wherever the ball is recovered / wherever it goes out of bounds, that's where the ball is spotted.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. That's a tricky one. I guess then you would have to change. Yeah, so, like, I guess my rule would just change the fumble rules in general, unless it's just the exception to the widely accepted fumble rules.
Right.
You got any bright ideas?
Well, my conundrum is this. I think it should just go on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
But, like, my question is why... Actually, maybe not the 1, but... Or if it goes out of bounds, yeah, it should be at the 1, but... Should it go to the offense or should it go to the defense at that point? because everywhere else on the field, I think that's the more uh, hated part of it. Not the fact that it's a touchback, because if it's a turnover in the end zone, it's a touchback. That's just how it should be. Works for interceptions. If they recover it in the end zone, it's a touchback.
Yeah.
But if it goes out of bounds, shouldn't it be the offense's ball at the 1?
I feel like it should be the offense's ball because the defense didn't gain recovery. Like in every other situation where a fumble goes out of bounds, it doesn't go to the other team. So why not give it back to the offense?
Yeah.
So I think in consensus, like, it should go back to the offense. It's just where do you spot the ball is the big conundrum. But that's why I feel like if it should go where they lose control of the ball or it's on the 1.
Yeah. Obviously we're not rules makers, but there's a lot more than just they should change it, because there's a lot to think about, and you don't want to completely change the game over something that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah. But that's why you need to have some of these rules, because you got to be ready for every scenario. Like if you look into the hockey rule book, there's some very specific wording for stuff because it has happened.
Nah, there's rules against standing on top of someone's shoulders by the field goal post to try and block a kick.
Yeah.
So I mean,
if that's in there, anything can go in there.
But no. Is there a specific game in week 2 that you are looking at with any particular interest here, Shane?
Ravens Bengals, that interdivision game. Joe Burrow is looking to bounce back after that awful game against the Browns. I hated watching that game because it was just, Deshaun Watson doing well. Something I don't want to see. And then, Colts Texans. That's going to be a tank bowl right there.
Got the battle of the 2nd overall pick in C.J. Stroud and the 4th overall pick in Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. You have Chiefs Jags. I think that should be a fun game to watch. See if Chiefs can bounce back after losing to Detroit.
They got Chris Jones back on a 1-year deal since we last talked. Chris Jones is their superstar defensive tackle, and that should help shore up the defense that just kind of got bullied against the Lions last week. Travis Kelce also should be playing again.
That's good to hear. That would be a huge help.
So maybe their receivers can catch again.
Ooh. I don't know, Dolphins Patriots, but that's. I'm just looking at all the interdivision games. Those have the most stakes to them.
Mm-hmm. No, the Dolphins. That's another team. They obviously went out and put on a show. Tua threw for 400 and something yards. Tyreek Hill went for 200 yards. Is that sustainable, or is that just against the Chargers?
It's probably against the Chargers. That's the most Charger thing to do. But that offense, when it's clicking, it's, dare I say, the best offense in football if everything goes right.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what they did.
Yeah. And it's just I'm just worried so much for Tua. It's just that team hinges on whether or not they can protect Tua.
He learned how to fall in the offseason.
That's a good thing to learn. And it's just, especially when you have him as your dynasty quarterback, I'm just that much more paranoid for his health. It was a gamble, but it's just the upside though. If he stays healthy, he's gonna put up insane numbers. But that's also picking Christian McCaffrey. You're just if healthy, insane production.
Right.
The injuries you're gambling with.
Yeah. My favorite matchup this week is the Lions and the Seahawks. The Seahawks are coming off a disappointing matchup, but that was those two teams were battling out for the 7th seed at the end of last year. So I am excited to see that game. I want to see if Seattle can bounce back. They got stepped on by the Rams a little bit in their last one. And I think they're a better team than that. So I think they'll bounce back. But no, that's the game I'm looking at this week. But yeah, it's exciting. Football's back.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep you posted on big news of the NFL every week. But Shane,
Yeah.
I think it's about time for us to break down the entire NHL offseason.
The entire NHL offseason.
The entire NHL offseason.
Oh.
There was a lot of stuff going on this offseason, wasn't there?
Yeah, a lot of big retirings, some huge contract extensions, some free agent moves. It was eventful, and a lot of it is going to have an impact on the NHL season.
No, but I mean, before we get into really breaking it down, recent years, not just in hockey, but
Have we talked about the draft yet?
No, the entire NHL
Okay,
offseason,
yeah,
Shane.
okay. I think the draft is the best place to start off then.
Yeah, but I mean, not just in hockey, but in all sports. Off seasons have been getting more and more active, I guess is the word for it.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think that's a trend here? Do you see a reason why?
Well, it's because players are prioritizing themselves more. So, and it's that you either pay them or they're leaving. Because, like you saw with the Austin Matthews contract, it's just like, pay me what I'm worth or I'm leaving in free agency. And then you saw, like, everyone's leaving the Flames, and then, like, with these young guys, like, even the young guys, they're like, you either pay me now for production I haven't done yet, that's production I could do, or I'm leaving, or I'm holding out. And I just think general managers are scared or just don't want to deal with that. And, yeah, I love it and then the cap is so tight that they have to make moves to stay compliant with it.
There's no luxury tax in hockey?
Nope.
Mm.
It's they're just like, everyone's hoping that the cap will go up next season, but it's like, with how tight it is, that what causes a lot of moves to be made, and you have to be a bit more creative with your trades.
Didn't it go up a lot last season? The most?
It only went like 1 or 2 million, but they're like, everyone keeps saying, oh, it's going to go up a lot this year. It's going to go up a lot this year. Some say by 4 or 5 million. But I haven't seen it happen yet, because every year they're saying, like, oh, it's going to go up a lot. Oh, it's going to go up a lot. And I just haven't seen it happen yet. So I'm kind of at the point where I'll believe it when I see it. But I think a lot of GMs are, like, preparing for that.
All right. So, like you said, there's no better place to start an entire offseason recap than with the draft.
Yeah.
So, did we even... never mind. We'll get there later.
I think we did a prospect preview.
Yeah. So, we had Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
One of the greatest prospects we've seen in the 2000s. Probably the best one we've seen since Sidney Crosby. McDavid. Excuse me. I always forget he was a prospect. But one of the best prospects in the 2000s in Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
And there was this huge draft lottery in which it came down to the Ducks,
Columbus, and Chicago.
And the Chicago Blackhawks for that number 1 overall pick. And to the dismay of Shane Brisland over here, and also of me, we need the Ducks dynasty to return.
The Duck dynasty.
Chicago pulled the number 1 pick and drafted Connor Bedard. Now, we've seen a lot of comments in this one and just in general about draft lotteries being rigged. It brings back memories of Patrick Ewing in the NBA, where the allegation, because the Knicks got him, they weren't supposed to. The allegation is they put the Knicks card in the freezer, so it was colder than the rest of them, so that the commissioner would know which one to pick. But, there's all these conspiracies and stuff about the draft lottery, and this one is no different.
Yeah.
Give us more
you
detail.
also saw
here.
it with when the Rangers got Alexis Lafreniere and Capo Caco.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were nowhere near, like, last place, and they somehow got the first overall pick and the second overall pick in, like, 2 consecutive drafts. And, of course, the big market team. And then this year, of course, you have the 2 smallest markets in the NHL in the Anaheim Ducks and Columbus Blue Jackets. And then, of course, you have the big market Chicago team, who were previously a dynasty, winning 3 Stanley Cups, and, of course, the dynasty fell apart. And then, of course, the generational prospect, best prospect since Connor McDavid. And, of course, the Chicago Blackhawks win it. It just looks incredibly suspicious.
It's not like the Blackhawks were a good team by any stretch.
Yeah.
They traded away their core, all of it.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. They don't want Chicago to be bad.
Yeah. It's not good for the NHL. Despite how much it makes me happy to see Chicago Blackhawks be bad.
So that part is another thing that added fuel to the fire there. But nevertheless, Chicago won the draft lottery.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Chicago's still going to be bad this year. Like, outside of Bedard.
Is Bedard going to start day one?
Oh, yes. Like, he's too good, like, at any other. He's dominated every level he's played. There's no other league that's good enough for him except this one. Like, he's a special kid.
Does he get first line minutes?
He's
right away.
He's going to get first line. He's going to be playing with Taylor Hall.
Is that because he is on a team as bad as the Blackhawks, or is it because of how good he is that he's getting first line minutes?
Both. No, Chicago is that bad.
Like
he's
if
their best player.
Like
already.
This didn't happen, but if he was on a stacked team like the Lightning, he wouldn't get first line minutes.
No. Well, it depends on what. Because it's like, again,
I'm just curious.
Tampa has like 2 first lines pretty much.
Right. Where would he fit in on a team like Tampa that's that stacked? I'm just trying to compare his expectations right now.
I'm not the head coach. It depends on what the coach would want to do.
What would you do, Shane?
I would definitely pair him up with Kucherov. Because Connor Bedard's a goal scorer, and Kucherov is one of the best playmakers in the league. So I think I would pair him up with him, and that can be your... But the problem is he plays with Braden Point, so maybe you move Bedard to the wing. But Bedard's a natural center.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Bedard would be first-line center on the Boston Bruins, no questions asked, because, their 2 best centers just retired. But I think he's no less than a third-line player on a contender. It's like Tampa, I'd probably slot him in at the third line just because Tampa's stacked. Yeah.
And I gave you, like, the team with the most centers.
Colorado, you have Nathan McKinnon as your first-line center.
Of course.
He's not going anywhere. I would say he's their second-line center. They were kind of missing Nazem Kadri last year.
Mm-hmm.
Connor Bedard would slot him right in that second-line center role. Like, he's a top 6 forward. He's got 30-goal upside, like, as a rookie. Like, we haven't seen this naturally gifted of a goal scorer as a rookie since Austin Matthews. Like, I would not be surprised if he put up a 40-goal season.
Right.
But it's just at least Matthews had a little bit more help around him. Bedard's on an island.
Now, the rest of this draft.
Yeah.
We could go on about Connor Bedard because he's going to be special. But the rest of this draft, Shane, give me a rundown. Who's your like, Bedard's going to be the shining star of this draft class. Who's your silver medalist in this draft class?
So this draft, the top 10 especially, had a lot of intricacy. Because you had Adam Fantilli, who was like a carbon copy of Jack Eichel, last freshman to win the Hobey Baker Award like best player in college hockey since, like, only 3 players have won that award, and Jack Eichel's a superstar, and the other 2 are Hall of Famers. So very good company.
As freshmen.
As a freshman,
yeah. Okay.
And so a lot of people thought he was going to go 2nd overall, but I think that was a bit of the American bias, the North American bias. But Leo Carlsson, from what I've heard, he's a stud European player, like the Ducks. So I heard some people were upset about Fantilli not going to the Ducks. Like, Leo Carlsson is good. He's just a bigger frame. He plays he's played in men's league, like a competitive professional league, so he's more NHL ready. And it's just like either of those 2 would have been a great pick for the Ducks. And Columbus should be so happy with Adam Fantilli. Like, those 2 guys projected to be like legit really good NHLers. William Smith to the San Jose Sharks, he's also projected to be really good, but he's probably a slight tier below Leo Carlsson and Fantilli. But there was this player who was the definitive silver medalist of this draft. The problem is he's Russian. And he signed to a 3-year deal for his KHL team. But he has been called the best Russian prospect since Alexander Ovechkin.
Really high praise.
This guy easily 1 or 2 from what I've seen from scouts. Like, easily 1 or 2 if he came to the NHL right away. And then some teams were scared of him because of, him not coming back right away and trying to get him back from Russia. So he fell to the Philadelphia Flyers. And Flyers fans are super excited for him. They're like, we don't care if we have to wait for him. Like, once he gets here, he's going to be sick. It's going to be like Kirill Kaprizov, where you're not going to get him right away, but when he gets here, he's going to be insane. And that those years of developing in the KHL, it's not going to hurt.
No, not at all.
So he could be up there with Bedard. He could be better than Bedard. And
really?
He fell all the way to 7. It's just the whole Russia controversy and him staying over there for a bit and not coming here right away kind of scared off a few teams.
Now, you say he signed a 3-year deal. Did he just sign a 3-year deal?
He signed it before the draft, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, that was already in there. So that is going to be something to watch over these next few years to see how Michkov develops, and the hype behind him when he gets to Philadelphia is going to be insane. And unfortunately, it was 1 spot ahead of the Washington Capitals. And if Washington picked up Michkov, I think DC would have gone bananas. Like, it's just adding another superstar Russian to the Capitals would have just been like so poetic, just seeing the successor to Ovechkin, pretty much.
Timeline would have worked perfectly. That's probably around the time that he's retiring, too.
Exactly. And then, other than that, like, the top 10 was really hyped up this year. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of, like, the rest of the draft. It was a very forward-heavy draft, like, nothing other, like, 2... actually, there's this one other prospect that I kind of want to talk about. There's this prospect named Gabe Perreault.
Mm-hmm.
He broke Austin Matthews' record for most points in the U.S. National Development Program. And so, yeah, you're right. More points than Austin Matthews.
That's insane.
And he only went, like, late first round. But it was just more along the lines of he's an undersized player, not a great skater.
How can you not be a great skater and beat Austin Matthews?
Compared to... He had really good line mates, and it's kind of also compared to, the best kids in the world. His skating is not up to par. So he was kind of a decisive prospect, but I think it's just when you have that high ceiling guy, you got to swing for him, especially in the late first. And he's just undersized. There's still, their preference over taller players. So I think he could be a really good prospect for the New York Rangers. Someone to look out for. All right.
So that was the draft.
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember if we talked about it on the show or not, but congratulations to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah.
On winning their first Stanley Cup. This was their
It took them
timeline.
so long.
This was their timeline.
Yeah, their GM said, in 5 years we'll win a cup. And
So that's incredibly impressive, especially for
An
an
expansion
expansion team, to make it to 2 cups in 5 years and win one of them.
yeah.
Yeah, so congratulations.
Also, congrats to, Jack Eichel with all the stuff he put up with in Buffalo. Almost won playoff MVP. Jonathan Marchessault won the playoff MVP, had a great playoff run, one of the original nights. And then Logan Thompson stepping up when there was a bunch of injuries at goalie. It was a goalie carousel, and then he was the guy for the majority of that run. And he got a hefty payday because of it.
Yeah, he did.
So, where do you want to start off with some of the off-season trades and acquisitions?
So let's talk off with what we've already mentioned.
Yeah.
Austin Matthews, record-breaking extension.
Yeah.
Staying with the Leaves. You said it. Pay him what he deserves.
Yeah. So, it's a 4-year deal, which is, not as much term as you would expect, but he goes back into free agency as a 30-year-old, so hopefully the cap goes up, and he's still going to be in the prime of his career, and hopefully he's looking to make more bank on top of that. It's just Toronto is already a very tight team when it comes to the salary cap, and somebody's got to get moved. Like, William Nylander needs to get paid. Like, I don't care, who you have to move to get William Nylander to stay in Toronto, but you need that guy to stay in Toronto. Especially with how iffy playoff performances have been, William Nylander is your guy in the playoffs. He's the most consistent guy. And I was listening to an interview with him, and Elliot, one of the best NHL insiders, was like, so, your contract extension is coming up. Are you nervous about it? And he was just like, no, I don't really care. And it's just like, that kind of nonchalant attitude is probably the reason why, he can handle the Toronto media so well and just show up when it comes to the playoffs, because he's just so cool, calm, and collected. And apparently his agent is asking around the 10 million mark, and I think you should pay him. I think the real thorn in their side is the Tavares contract, because that contract going in, you knew, the later stages of that contract, it was going to be difficult because he's not getting any younger. But the first few years, he was phenomenal. And it's just a shame that they're cursed to not get past the second round, but I think they're going to have to move Tavares at some point if you're going to sign Nylander. The problem is finding a team that will take him, that hefty contract for an aging player.
How old is Tavares? He's what, 31?
35.
He's that old?
He's pretty old.
I thought he was younger.
No, he's vet at this point. Yeah, all our players are getting old, Jeremy.
Crazy.
Oh, 32, my bad. But still, you can already see some regression in his game.
So they're probably going to move him this season then.
Yeah, maybe, if they can make it work.
You trade him to a contender. Get some capital, and then you can sign.
But you're going to have to, retain cap or find a team to take some of that contract.
I'm sure the Coyotes will do it.
Yeah, add him to the list. And then...
next one we've briefly mentioned. The
Yeah.
Bruins have lost their top 2 centers to retirement. Let's talk about their careers a little bit.
Yeah. So, Patrice Bergeron, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best leaders in NHL. Not a single bad thing said about the guy. He just, does all the little things right. He checks in on all of his players. If a new guy comes in, he's, the first guy to call them. And the best defensive forward of the 21st century. He won 6 Selke trophies as the league's best defensive forward. And there was a reason why Boston was one of the best defensive teams for the past, 10 years. Yes, they had other potential future Hall of Famers and Hall of Famers in Zdeno Chara, Tuukka Rask, Tim Thomas. But you need that presence in the center position, which is one of the, if not the most important on-ice position in hockey. Someone who can reliably win face-offs and shut down the other team's bests at the end of the game. And he just had some extraordinary playoff moments, like that comeback against the Maple Leafs when they were down like by 3 goals, and he scored the game-tying goal and the game-winning goal. He played through a punctured lung in the Stanley Cup final. He had a punctured lung, went to the hospital, and played the next day. Like, this guy is a warrior and just a quintessential hockey player. And on top of being a hockey player, he's even a better person. So, like, all of that combined, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, so me and Shane were having a discussion about whether or not he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'll delve into that in just a second, but for now, we have reached the top of the hour here on WXJM 88.7 FM, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and WXJM.org. My name is Jeremy Lapidus. I am your host of this Triple Threat show, joined today by my friend and co-host,
Shane Brisland.
And yeah, so we're talking about hockey. Remember, you can check us out on YouTube, where we're currently live streaming at the Triple Threat Show. You can check us out on Instagram at the Triple Threat Show, and on Twitter, at X, at 3 Threat Show. But yeah, we're talking hockey, and me and Shane were having a discussion about a week ago, I think, about Brad Marchand and his legacy, I guess you'll say. Or
Bergeron or
Bergeron.
Yeah.
Not Brad Marchand. My bad.
Before we dive into the Bergeron talk, I kind of want to shout out David Krejci, very underrated part of the Bruins. I don't want to say they were a dynasty, but they were just a really solid team for the past 10 years. And David Krejci was the unsung hero, second line center. He actually had a better points per game average in the playoffs than Bergeron, but just super underrated Czech player, really good playmaker. They could not have been that successful of a team if you don't have that second line center, and that's what Krejci was. So, again, he's definitely not a Hall of Famer, but Hall of very good, Bruins Ring of Honor, phenomenal player, and also a very good leader too as well. So back to the Bergeron conversation.
Yeah. So about a week ago we were talking here, and what Shane just said, first ballot Hall of Famer, and that, I mean, very convincing argument here. Convinced me here. But originally, I was on the fence about this. And it comes to a bigger point of what makes a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I know you had your own definition, which...
Well, it's just when it comes to first ballot Hall of Famer, in my mind, it's just if you think of the player and automatically you think first ballot Hall of Famer, that's kind of my go-to. And it's just I also grew up watching Bergeron, and then also hearing other people in the media talk about players. Everyone else is saying he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, so that's a really good sign. If the media is saying it, and a lot of the people in the media are connected with
those are the people that vote.
Yeah. So it's just if they're saying it, he's going to be it.
Right. No, it's so tough to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, because that's a super special distinction. Because you can be a Hall of Famer if you're just, you have to be incredible to be a Hall of Famer, but there's tiers to the Hall of Fame, Yeah. There's your Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin tier, and then there's the everyone else tier.
Yeah. The guys who kind of just barely scrap in, and just the guys who are how are they a Hall of Famer?
Right. But no, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's so tough to come up with a definition for a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And you can try, but it's the eye test, or, it's all these factors. You know one when you see one.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of the time, for Bergeron specifically, you kind of had to experience him, because when you go back and you look at the numbers, it's not gonna pop out as, oh my god, this guy, first ballot Hall of Famer. 50 years from now, they're not gonna be like, this guy, thank God he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. They might not think about it, or they might be like, why was he a first ballot Hall of Famer? but it's one of those guys that you had to watch to experience, and that's just how some players are.
And the intangibles too. I know that word gets, but like this dude he's just a leader. He was born to lead, and just very charismatic. Like everyone in the Boston Bruins organization loves the guy. Everyone in the hockey community loves the guy. So, and then he also has like Olympic gold medals. Can't throw that under. Like again, the guy's done everything. So it's kind of hard to compare. You have to compare it by era. So the offensive numbers may not jump out to you, but he was also playing in the dead puck era where no one was scoring that much. So for his numbers, they're incredibly impressive.
Right. No doubt. Congratulations on an incredible career to both of those guys. You don't think there's shot Krejci squeaks his way in?
No, he doesn't have the awards or the notoriety and longevity that Bergeron has. Krejci kind of was injury prone throughout his career, so he doesn't have as many games.
That's what I remember about him the most.
Yeah. So, yeah, but he's definitely Hall of very good, all-time, great Boston Bruin. And then that kind of leads into the Boston Bruins kind of have a gaping hole at center. I think Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha are now your top two centers, which is not ideal. You still have McAvoy, you still have Pastrnak and Marchand, but it's just like, I don't know how they're going to fill that void at center, but they'll still should be one of the best defensive teams in the league.
Right, and this is a team that just set an NHL record
Yeah.
as the best regular season team of all time.
Yeah.
Obviously, that didn't translate into playoff success, but they should be fine.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Losing, you were just talking about how important that center position is, and losing your top two is rough.
And a leader in the locker room too. It's going to be interesting to see how the locker room reacts to the lack of presence. So, we can dive into more of and the Atlantic Division is going to be tough.
It always is.
No, but this year, it's going to be, because, Ottawa and Buffalo took huge steps. Detroit, we're going to talk about the move they made.
And you've still
they got Alex DeBrincat, who's 40-goal upside there.
Right, I mean, all these teams made improvements, and then you've still got the Leafs and the Lightning at the top of that division.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. So it's just, that division's going to be a bloodbath. Except for the Montreal Canadiens.
You don't believe in the Canadiens?
It's just all right, you have Caulfield, who's coming off a major shoulder injury.
Yeah, their entire team is
Suzuki's
hurt.
Good. And then, I don't even know who their goalie is anymore.
Carey Price officially retired, right?
No, I think he's unofficially retired. But I
think
he's just
Carey Price comeback season?
No, he's not coming back. He's just his knees are just too screwed up. But I guess do they still have Josh Allen?
I'd hope not. He's busy playing football right now. No, I have no idea.
Jake Allen, my bad. Yeah, it's just I can't even they've got Slavkovsky. It's just that roster has had so much turmoil. I can't even remember who's on it. And yeah, they were very injured, but also it's just that compared to the other teams, they're not up to par with the rest of them.
Oh no, I agree with you. I know they were super hurt, and then for the last 2 years or so.
Oh, I even Florida is in that division too. They made the Stanley Cup final. That's going to be a tight playoff race. That division's going to be a bloodbath.
You think they steal all of the wild card spots in that division?
Potentially. I'm still the wild cards have been really tough for me. I'm flip-flopping between 3 teams for that final spot right now.
Right.
Honestly 3 or 4 teams I could see getting that final spot. But I want to go back to Detroit about them trading for Alex DeBrincat.
Yep.
He had a down year in Ottawa. I just don't think it was a good system fit. He had 60 points, but this guy scores goals. You're expecting 30, 40 goals out of him because he's done that before. And I don't know where he's going to be put in the lineup, but he's going to get top power play minutes. He's going to get put with Dylan Larkin, hopefully. and he should be able to put up closer to that amount. And Detroit may not have like the superstars yet, but they're an incredibly deep team. I'm a huge fan of their goaltender, Ville Husso. Like, he had a phenomenal year in St. Louis, did decently in Detroit. He's going to build off that. Moritz Seider, really good defenseman, had a bit of a sophomore slump, but he's only going to get better. And they have some major prospects coming in.
But here's a question,
They're
Shane.
a team on the watch.
Is their goalie position shored up yet?
Ville Husso?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a goalie.
I know he's a goalie, but
Yeah.
he had a down year last year, didn't he?
Yeah, but I'm confident. He didn't do bad. He was just kind of mediocre. Let me.
No, pull up his stats, but I don't know. I mean, I think I don't have my predictions. They're buried somewhere, but I'm pretty sure I had him making a wild card last season because of a lot of these moves.
Yeah, actually no, he didn't have a great year last year.
And then their goalies just fell apart. I mean, it's
yeah,
fine.
because they had Nedeljkovic.
Right. Yep.
He had that was the one I knew who had a really down season. But I still like Ville Husso. You know, give him. Last year was a mulligan. Let's see what happens this year. But I definitely think they're a tier below Buffalo and Ottawa when it comes to where they are at in the rebuild.
I mean, Tage Thompson.
Yeah.
With Buffalo.
Devin Levi, he's a highly touted goalie prospect. And, you know, kind of a very important position in hockey. You know, Rasmus Dahlin, former first overall pick. Like,
Alex Tuch.
Oh, it's just like that team is so incredibly deep. They have a lot of really good young guys. And then Ottawa is kind of similar. You have Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle, who took huge strides in their development this year. They just got Jacob Chichurin. Unfortunately, got injured right as he got to Ottawa, but he's a top 4 defenseman on top of, you know, Jake Sanderson, who's a top 5 pick. And that's not even including Shabbat, who's a top pairing defenseman. Their goaltending position isn't as certain, which is why I like Buffalo a little better. But, like, that's still, like, a really deep team. They're really young, but, like, that team can pop off.
Does Buffalo break their playoff drought this season, Shane?
Yes. I don't want to knock on wood. I am on the Buffalo hype train 100%. I think they can make the playoffs this year.
What's their streak at right now? It's like 15 or something like that?
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
It's over 10. Like, it's like probably, I think it's at like 12 or 13.
That's crazy.
But they just need to learn how to play some defense, and then they're making the playoffs. Like, that was their big issue last year. They could score with the rest of them, they just could not play defense to save their lives.
Are they a team that might go out and get a guy like Tavares at the deadline?
No, they do not have the cap space for that. I heard
they've already paid their guys, haven't they?
No, because they got to save money for the rookie contracts, like some guys coming up. But they have some rookies coming up. The big rumor is Patrick Kane coming back to his hometown once he recovers from his surgery. He's getting hip surgery right now. I think they're trying to have him come and be that present superstar winner. Not superstar because he's past his prime, but Patrick Kane, you know, the name Patrick Kane
brand winger, yeah.
Will definitely bring morale up. It's more like they need to find I'd rather look for a more responsible bottom 6 forward or a defensive defenseman, because they don't really need, like, extra scoring doesn't hurt, but you need some players who can be responsible defensively to help with that.
Right. No, it's been a while for the Sabres.
Yeah.
So they deserve some good things to happen to them.
All right. So let's moving on to the other Eastern Conference division, the Metro. There was let's get to the
big trade of the offseason.
Yep. Erik Karlsson to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Kyle Dubas, the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, was let go, signs in Pittsburgh, and he makes a big splash with one of his first moves there, signing, because I think he was trying to get Erik Karlsson all of last season. He just couldn't make it work, and then he made it work with Pittsburgh this offseason. And Erik Karlsson put up 100 points on the San Jose Sharks as a defenseman. That hasn't been done in 30 years. Like, the problem is he's like older and injury prone, but when healthy, this guy is a game breaker, and he's going to be playing with the likes of Sidney Crosby, Jake Getzel, Evgeny Malkin, Letang if he's healthy. Like, that is going to be huge for their offensive production.
Right. Erik Karlsson is an intriguing player. We talked about Bergeron earlier this show.
Yeah.
In the fact that he was a defensive forward, right?
Yeah.
Now, in the exact opposite light,
Yeah.
we have Karlsson. Now,
that's a good observation there, yeah.
He is the best offensive defenseman we have seen in a very long time.
Yeah, he's the best offensive defenseman in at least the 21st century.
He just won the Best Defenseman award
for like the third time, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of some first ballot Hall of Famer stuff right there.
But the issue is with him, he's not good at defense.
Yeah, he's definitely when you get Erik Karlsson, you take the good with the bad. You take the 4-point nights, but also realize he's probably letting up 2 turnovers that lead to goals.
Right. As he just gets out of position.
Yeah.
But he offsets it. But the issue with a guy like him is if he loses that like spark,
yeah,
he's automatically a minus.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying he is. He's not like 40 at this point, and he's coming off an 100-point season. He's like 30, isn't he?
He's in his 30s. Let's
But
see how late in his 30s he is.
I think he's like 32 or something like that. But he
33.
33. So I mean, he's still got years, but he's coming off an 100-point season. So there's no reason that he's gonna plummet off a cliff. But Pittsburgh was already weak at defense.
Yeah, and they're just, you add an old and injury-prone player to a old and injury-prone lineup.
Right. So, I mean, that's going to be a super fun power play to watch.
Yeah.
So fun. Probably the deadliest power play in the league.
Yeah, the Oilers still exist, but yeah, they'll probably be top 5.
I don't know, man. It's hard to compete with Crosby, Malkin, Karlsson,
McDavid, and Draisaitl. They had a ridiculous power play last year.
I know. They are built similar in a lot of ways. The Oilers and the Penguins at this point.
Yeah.
Not
of course,
the
they don't
Penguins,
have the cups yet.
not the Penguins of the Cup years. That team was built a lot different than this year's Penguins. But the Oilers and the Penguins are a very similarly built team.
It's just they lack depth, and then the Oilers still don't have like that offensive defenseman yet. Evan Bouchard could be that guy. I'm really high on him. It's just he's younger and he's just not there yet.
Mm.
I just can't. In my head, I want to say they're a playoff team, but it's just that lineup. I've just seen it happen too many times where like Malkin goes down with an injury, Letang goes down with an injury.
They're still rolling with Jari.
Jari, super injury prone.
He's also super inconsistent.
Yeah, but like when he's good, he's good. It's just like he's also an injury prone goalie. Their bottom 6 depth concerns me. Like they have a phenomenal top 6, phenomenal top 2 pairing defensemen. It's just you need depth to make playoffs. You need depth to go on a run, and they just don't have that for me. It's on top of being old, which is a concern because it just means they're more prone to injury and fatigue.
Right.
But then again, they have Sidney Crosby. Crosby's not going to go down without a fight.
They got Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Ever heard of that guy? He's pretty good at hockey.
Yeah. Speaking of first ballot Hall of Famers.
No, but that trade was insane. Do you want to talk about what the Sharks got back?
It was kind of a bit underwhelming, honestly, because it was like, of course, there was like a first-round pick involved and a bunch of like random players. Because I know the Sharks got a pick and like a few like older vets they're gonna flip at the deadline, like Mike Hoffman. Did they trade Granlund? Yeah, I think Granlund was part of that deal. And so they got guys that, they're still serviceable and they can flip them at the deadline kind of players.
The Sharks have been in this kind of no man's land of not bad enough, but also not a playoff team
Yeah.
since, like, 2018 or so, or, like, I guess 2019 maybe.
Yeah.
When Joe Thornton left, and
Pavelski
left, and all those Sharks of old shipped out of there.
Timo Meier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just surprised they didn't. I think they should have traded Thomas Hertl.
See, here's the thing. He's young, isn't he?
Yeah, he's younger. So I guess you need a guy to stick around.
Because they're building around him and Timo Meier, aren't they?
Timo Meier's gone.
He's gone?
The Devils.
That's right. He didn't re-sign with them.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah, it's just like, they were just kind of stuck in no man's land after those cup runs. And, I mean, they're just trying to tank. I think Thomas Hertl's just going to be their guy. They need just that one star player to lean on. Logan Couture is there. He's the captain. I don't know how much longer they're going to keep him around for, but he helps keep him above the cap floor, leader on that team. Maybe he gets traded to a contender later in his career because he's a playoff performer. It's just kind of a shame to see the Sharks of old just kind of whittle away into this rebuild because they used to be, like, they were one of the best teams for the past decade.
And they never got a cup.
They just couldn't win a cup.
Yeah, it sucks.
They had to deal with the likes of the Penguins, the Bruins, the Caps, Vancouver.
Yep.
And they just kind of routinely, choked. So.
Nah, when I was first getting into hockey when I was younger, I mean, I only knew about the Capitals.
Yeah.
And I had, NHL 12 or something like that. And I saw the Sharks logo. I was like, that's my second favorite team. And they were good, so it made it easier to root for them.
They're a fun team to play with.
But, no, they're, I always have this little soft spot for the Sharks just because of that. So, sucks that they didn't win one.
Yeah.
But would you, if you were their GM, would you blow it all up right now? Or would you...
Of course.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, they kind of already
already did a little bit.
Yeah, because Burns is gone. The only players that are left right now are Hertl and Couture. And they're just trying to, fill in, just draft as many players as they can. Hope they hit on something. But you got to keep some guys around. But, yeah, the Sharks are going to be bad next year.
With the Sharks.
Yeah. And then the last free agent deal I want to touch on was that the New Jersey Devils acquired Tyler Toffoli. And so New Jersey was kind of the first team that really popped off, the young upcoming team that made the playoffs surprisingly.
Beat the Rangers in the first round.
Yeah, beat the Rangers in the first round. Took huge strides this offseason. They made so many big moves. They got Timo Meier at the deadline. Dougie Hamilton signed with them as a free agent. And the only difference between them and Buffalo and Ottawa was because they had really good defense. They had one of the best defensive cores in the league, and that helped. And then Jack Hughes popped off for a 99-point season, franchise record for points in a season.
The little rotating goaltenders were popping off at the right times.
He's never great, but he is consistently good.
And he had a stretch where he was great there in that season. Obviously, not in the playoffs. He got replaced, but
he became Vitek Vanacek.
But then, their other guys were popping off at the right time.
But again, as Caps fans, we love Vitek. It's just we just know what he is. He's the
greatest Seattle Kraken of all time.
Exactly, undefeated Seattle Kraken goalie. But he's the epitome of a mid goalie.
Yeah.
He's not going to win you a game. He's not going to lose you a game, and that's what the Devils needed for so many years, though. And now they got Tyler Toffoli, who had 30 goals last season for Calgary. This guy scores, and you're already adding that to a lineup that went to the second round in the playoffs, and they as a super young team. So given an off season to gain chemistry, Timo Meier signed an extension there. This team, dare I say, is on the cusp of contender, and it was just shocking how quickly they became that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's exciting.
I just realized they still have some top 5 defensemen like top 5 picks that are still coming in. Like the other Hughes brother, it's Jack Quinn and Luke. Yeah, Luke Hughes.
I was gonna guess Jason off of nothing.
Yeah, like Luke Hughes. Like he's gonna look like a power play defenseman, like goes end to end, super incredible skater. And they have Simone Nemec, who was a second overall pick, solid 2-way defenseman. Like they still have these guys coming up, and they're gonna play pivotal roles. Like this, the Devils are looking good for. Well, this like their window, I would say, just opened.
Yeah, and hopefully they. I mean, they've got more people coming up. That's a scary team. Good for the Devils.
Scary to think about, yeah.
I got one more contract that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
As a Caps fan, there was a huge extension.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Tom Wilson signed. I forget how long of a deal it was, and it's come out to.
It's a long deal. It's I think it was like a 6x8.
Yeah, a long deal. A lot of people around the NHL are laughing at the Capitals for giving them that deal. He currently is the only athlete in all of DC signed through 2030. And I know we talked a little bit about this off air, but I'm curious what your thoughts are about this contract.
All right, so my initial response to it was upset because he had a major injury last year. He's an injury-prone player. But the thing is, where the Caps are right now, I don't think it's that big of a deal because Ovechkin and Backstrom aren't going to be around for much longer, and you need that veteran presence to protect the young guys, especially with the style of hockey he plays. You need guys like him.
He'll get all
to
the
stick
attention.
around with the young core, and he's a huge fan favorite. It's just when you hear Tom Wilson amongst the hockey community, it draws people's attention, and they need a player like that as they're going through this rebuild, especially in the darker years of the rebuild once we lose Alex Ovechkin. So I think it's fine. It's just we kind of have to accept the Capitals are not going to be a playoff team anymore, and it's just kind of a contract that will just keep us on the cap floor, and we'll move on.
Right. Because here's the thing: he's older. He's injury prone.
He's 30 or 29.
But we've seen teams without a guy, and it's depressing.
Yeah, he's an identity.
Right? You need that. I'm gonna take this to baseball real quick because the Nats traded away Juan Soto, and they were left guyless. They had no guy, and there was no one for them to slap on their promotional stuff. You know, they were slapping on Paolo Espino. That doesn't mean anything to anyone.
It's kind of like the Blackhawks last year. It was kind of, despite how much I despised them, it was kind of sad seeing them without a guy.
Every team needs a guy. It doesn't need to be a league-wide superstar, but every team needs a guy.
Yeah.
And a team without a guy is depressing, and we can't promise that the Caps are going to have a guy.
Yeah.
Once Ovechkin and Backstrom retire in 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to go into those dark ages.
He puts butts in seats.
Exactly. You need, even not ignoring on the ice product, just for fan engagement and even for the bottom line of this hockey
and brand
team
recognition
and all this stuff. You need the guy, right? And I'm a fan of the contracts, honestly, for the reasons I've just said, and also when he's healthy, he's so special. He really is.
Yeah, he's a unicorn in the hockey community.
Right, because he
can fight and he can
He's a
score.
bruiser. He can play that bully hockey if you need him to.
Yeah.
But also he's got the handles to go and do not everything, but some of the stuff that a guy like a Kuznetsov can do, you know? Some of it.
I would say he's more of a
He's got this
Oshie or it's just he's not as skilled as those guys.
He's
a power forward though.
He's
like a poor man's Brady to Chuck.
There's a skill tree,
yeah.
Right? He filled everything about 50% or about 70%, you know? He's not going to be the greatest at anything, but he can do everything pretty good. And that's really impressive, honestly. So, I'm very happy that he's here for the long run.
Yeah.
But
It's just I played a stupid amount of franchise mode. It's just the value side of it is just not great, but it's just like you gotta have a guy to keep around.
Yep.
That was a very good point that you made.
All right. Well, unless there was anything else, Shane, real quick, we have reached the 1:30 mark on our show. Got anything real quick or not?
I mean, the last thing I have here is Ottawa acquired Tarasenko as a free agent, so he's kind of the DeBrincat replacement.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just like Ottawa, it's going to be so fun watching that Atlantic Division. I just want to reemphasize that it's going to be a bloodbath for that playoff spot.
It's going to be a little preview.
Yeah, I'm flip-flopping between the Atlantic Division taking the 2 wild cards and the only other wild card team. It's just like the Metro. It's like Jersey and Carolina are the only 2 like locks I have in at playoffs, and it's just kind of like Rangers, Penguins. It's kind of between them fighting for that 3rd spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. NHL season starts on October 7th, so we'll do our preview show within the next 2 weeks. Whenever Shane can get back with us. But that's a little taste for our NHL prediction preview show. But thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Triple Threat Show on WXJM, 88.7 FM, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and WXJM.org. My name is Jeremy Lapidus, host of this Triple Threat Show, joined today by
Shane Brisland.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to go check out our YouTube at The Triple Threat Show, our Instagram at The Triple Threat Show, and Twitter at 3 Threat Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next Saturday. Bye-bye.
Yeah, both the 23rd and 30th work for me.
Sick.